Thanks, Tim, and welcome everyone to today's presentation on VHM. First of all, acknowledgement of country. VHM acknowledges the Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people as the first inhabitants of the nation and traditional custodians of the lands where we live, learn and work. We pay our respects to past, present and emerging elders. Next slide, please. Please note the disclaimer and forward-looking statements. For those who are listening, it could well be the first time to hear the VHM story, and welcome. Basically, the company has been going since 2016. We have a very experienced team who are proven developers of resource projects in Australia and internationally. We focused on this particular area because of the global decarbonisation that is fast approaching and as you see in the media. Why is this important? Because this is all about the critical minerals, the rare earths that actually create the magnets for the electrification of vehicles and wind turbines and all those things necessary for decarbonisation. The projects that we're going to talk about today are the flagship project, which is located in northwest Victoria. And that project is called the Goshen Rare Earth and Mineral Sands Project. And we also will touch on two other joint projects that we're working on. So it's important to call out that we're dealing with a critical minerals province. When you actually look at this company, we are focused on a dual commodity stream. So around 75% of our revenue from our flagship project will come from rare earths, and the rest will come from zirconia and titania, and those minerals effectively do the heavy lifting for the operating costs for mining, the processing and logistics. When we look at this project, it will also help unlock new mineral processing capabilities on the east coast of Australia. So just quickly who we are also. We are an Australian company. We have basically Mr. Ellison is our #1 shareholder, and you can see the key stats there, and we'll keep moving through. So next slide, please. So as I said, we're located in northwest Victoria. We have a significant contiguous tenement package, and that gives us a series of unique opportunities to actually have our foot on a critical minerals province. Our flagship project, Goshen, we recently released in March of 2023 our refreshed DFS, which actually demonstrates that the project will have an NPV of around 1.5 billion, an internal rate of return of 44%. The EBITDA, and you'll see another slide on this in a minute, results in a rapid payback of around less than 3 years. We have an advanced approval schedule. So this is a very unique company where we're actually very advanced in the approval space. And as I said, recently we released the exciting Canny project, which basically shows that we had a 40% increase in our TREO inventory. So next slide, please. So very quickly, next slide, please. Okay, so the key elements that we're talking about today are zircon and titania, which are the elements that cover off the majority of the operating costs, and they're effectively our byproducts. And then we actually have the rare earths, which are the lights, which are neodymium, praseodymium, and the heavies, which are dysprosium and terbium. We have a unique basket, and that basket is around 60% of our rare earths are the lights and 30% are the heavies. Next slide, please. When you look at the supply and demand situation for these rare earths, you can see particularly around 25, 26, there's a supply-demand imbalance really developing. And that is why there is an enormous amount of activity in the strategic space to actually cover that potential shortfall. So through Europe, North America, Southeast Asia and Japan, and nationally, there's a whole lot of movement to actually try to secure these critical minerals. Next slide, please. So I'm now going to focus in on the Goshen project. So it's our starter project is 5 million tonnes per annum. It's greater than 20 years life of mine. It uses conventional technology, so conventional process technology, conventional open pit mining methods. It is mining sand, and we're mining zircon, titania, and rare earths that are hosted in shallow open pits. What is of key importance is from day one, all tailings report back into the open pit, and that tailings is basically the uneconomic sand material that we have stripped the zircon and titania and rare earths from. We will produce around 134 kilotons per annum of zircon and titania heavy mineral concentrate. And on top of that, we have a couple of products of rare earths minerals, which the first is a rare earth mineral concentrate, which we're able to separate from the zircon and titania through a flotation circuit. And then the next stage is a small scale hydromet circuit, which allows us to produce a mixed rare earth mineral carbonate. Now, from that, you can see on the table, there's key financial metrics, MPV of around 1.5 billion with that internal rate of return, and EBITDA of throwing off around $290 million per annum, hence the very rapid payback. Okay, next slide, please. So we are a near-term developer, and what that means is in the next 2 years, we anticipate to be commissioning the Goshen project in H1 2025. We have already delivered a series of key outcomes since listing on the 9th of January. Prior to listing, it is important to note that the company raised around $78 million off market. And at listing, we raised a further $30 million, which allows us to continue on a very well-defined strategy to bring the Goshen project into production. I've already said that we have advanced approvals. So when we actually talk about that, the company in Victoria has advanced to adequacy. And after adequacy, we anticipate around mid-year into the second half of 2023, we'll be moving into exhibition, which is a process where information will then flow into a panel. And in Victoria, the Minister for Planning will make the decision, and we anticipate late in 2024 or into late in 2023 or early into H1 of 2024. As you can see, we anticipate to be constructing in the second half of 2024 with commissioning of the process plant in 2025. So we are a near-term project developer. Next slide, please. One of the key things is the funding strategy. So what the company has is a mineral province. So there's a series of major assets, which includes the Goshen project, the Canny project, and there's also another major project called the Nowie project. This basically opens the company up to a whole series of negotiations with parties who are interested in offtake and also strategic partners. Also available to the company is global debt markets and also non-dilutionary government lending and grants. With the other side of the equation, there is strategic partnerships as well as equity capital markets. So all options are on the table with respect to funding of the Goshen project. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm now going to sort of take you through the Canny project and why we talk about a mineral province. First of all, we have a very large granite called the Lake Boga granite. That granite is 55 kilometres north-south, 33 kilometres east-west. So think of one of the largest granites around with a series of rare earth pegmatites all through it. Now, why is that important? Because that granite formed an island when the sea was covering the Murray Basin, and the sea eroded the rare earths from the pegmatite. And because of the specific gravity of those rare earths concentrated with zirconia in shallow sand-hosted deposits along the western flank of that granite. So along that 55-kilometre strike length of granite are a series of sand-hosted critical mineral deposits. Next slide, please. So zooming in, we can see the Goshen project, which is located in the centre. And we can see on the left-hand side is a series of mineral inventories. So we've got around 5.1 million tonnes of zircon in inventory, 2.9 million tonnes of leucoxene, and 2.7 million tonnes of rutile. So substantial amounts of those minerals. On top of that, we have around 589,000 tonnes of TREO. So making this a significant rare earth project. Also note that the annual demand for zircon is around 1.2 million tonnes per annum. So that puts it into context. So back to the geology. So along the western flank are a series of major deposits. And if you think of each one of those as being a unique asset, which basically enables the company to commence or continue negotiations with a group of strategics who are interested in securing supply. Remember, 2026. Next slide, please. So next slide, please. So upcoming milestones. So we are already at detailed engineering for the Goshen project. We have very advanced approvals process. So we're at adequacy. And we're also undertaking pilot plant test work at ANSTO, which is located in New South Wales. And that is the peak organisation for understanding how to extract rare earths. When we also look at the project, there is significant mineral resource and ore reserve upside for the company. And we anticipate to make a series of announcements in the future. As I said, we've already completed market verification, and that is through a series of announcements on MOUs with respect to a offtake. And also we are in negotiations for offtake throughout Europe, North America, Southeast Asia, Japan, and also nationally. And we anticipate further news flow around that. I've also covered off on the possible funding options, and we are targeting final investments decision in either late H2 2023 or in H1 2024, subject to ministerial approval of the project.
Thank you.
I think
thanks, Graham.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just time for a couple of quick questions. There was a really good article in the paper today, and I was talking to the CEO of the Chamber of Minerals and Energy in Western Australia, and she spoke about the Australian government, and in particular, in a question for you, what role does the Australian government need to play? I mean, we're a high-cost producer relative to the rest of the world. You've seen significant progress from the US government. What role should the Australian government play in this critical minerals industry?
So thanks for the question. Basically, the company has major project status. So we are obviously, what does that mean? It means that we are in, it helps us with approvals. It helps us with understanding possible offtake arrangements internationally and nationally. And also it assists in understanding non-dilutionary government funding. So there are a series of positive steps that the Australian government is already providing to this company. And obviously, one of the key things that all companies would like is further access to non-dilutionary funding. And that would be one of the key areas to facilitate a major development of low-cost critical mineral projects in Australia.
And can you talk us through how you'll come up with kind of your final investment decision? And are there any regulatory hurdles ahead?
Obviously, the key one is to deliver the environmental effects statement. Once the Planning Minister has made the determination, that gives us a very clear guide on the de-risking step of this project. As I said, we are at a very advanced stage. So the company has been working on approvals since 2017. So this is not a overnight wonder. We've done extensive amounts of work to de-risk this approvals process. And as I said, it all comes down at the end of the year or early next year with respect to the Minister's decision.
And we see a lot of rare earths companies these days. I think you said you've been around since 2016. Has that always been in the rare earth space?
Yes, our key focus has been a rare earth explorer. We took a very long view back in 2015, 2016 when we started really focusing on this area. We noted that there is strong potential for a critical minerals province in northwest Victoria, and you've already seen the success to date.
Might have lost you there, Graham. We might finish up there anyway. We're out of time. Thank you for your time, and we'll follow with interest. Have a good weekend.